Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I'm going to be bringing to you guys is a video on how to be the lead shot caller in a war in New World. Now, I've seen a lot of videos of some really good shot callers across YouTube, and some shot callers that are kind of still learning the ropes, that sort of thing. And I'm by no means claiming that I am one of the best ones, but what I have got is a lot of experience in wars in New World, and you know, on our server we're quite renowned for being one of the better teams, if not the best on the server. We're winning quite a lot of wars, 9 times out of 10 we're winning. I think so far since we've had the merger we've got a 100% win rate, and we've had about 11 or 12 wars, so we're doing pretty good. And obviously this comes down to your team, it comes down to your planning, etc., and it comes down to your strategy, but most importantly, it also comes down to your comms. Now, comms is what I'm going to be talking to you all about today, trying to explain some of the best ways that you can instantly improve your comms, you know, to become a better co-commer, to become the lead commer, or if you just wanted to get into it a little bit behind the scenes, maybe you wanted to practice thinking about getting into it, or you just want to know some tips to pass on, then this video should be for all of you guys that are interested in the war side of things here in Eternum. So your first thing here is you're going to want to make sure that you have a clear plan and a backup plan if that doesn't go to plan, and then a third plan for that backup plan, so that you've always got something that you can do. In other words, don't run out of things to do. Don't run out of ideas. Don't run out of, oh, what should we do next? Always make sure that you're ahead of the competition, ahead of the team, as it's your job as the lead commer to always have a strategy and always have a play for the team to make, and you need to make that call preemptively before you need it doing. So you need to say, in the next 5 seconds, we're all going to be rotating to C, whatever the case may be, so that everybody does know what's going on. Now, with this as well, what you'll see is if your main plan doesn't work out, I'm going to cover this in depth in a little bit, but you're going to need some good adaptability. You're going to need sure that your comms are clear and concise, and you're going to need to make sure that the plan is reinforced continuously throughout. So, for example, if your plan is push B and then push A, once you've captured B, you might be telling people what to do, you know, fight around the point, play for respawns, go into the back line of their team, whatever the case may be there. But as soon as you've done that, you need to be reinforcing the plan that is now, everybody remember that we're going to be pushing A in the next 5 seconds once this is capped. So as soon as you've done that, head over to A, make sure you pop in your haste potions, get people in the mindset of what you're going to be doing and what you need them to do in order to be successful. And that way, by the time it gets to that point, a couple of seconds ahead, they're already thinking about it. Everyone knows what they're doing. Remember, you've got 49 other people who are literally waiting for you to tell them what to do. So if you are going to be lead common, you need to make sure you're ahead of the game with that.
Just going to take out all of the cannons. Even if they're not using them, just get rid of them all. Top right cannon first, guys. And then we're going above the door right cannon next, please.
And in that sort of plan type thing, again, something else I'm going to talk about is composition as a separate point. But with that, it's really important to make sure that we've got planned out. For example, I like to have group 8 as a group of tank players. So make sure that you've got a clear plan in terms of which groups are going to do what, so it makes it a lot simpler for you to comm that. And again, we'll get onto that when I talk about composition a little bit more. But make sure that you've got planned groups, that you've got group roles, and that you've got a composition that works so that you can comm it successfully. Make sure that your comms are clear, concise, and consistent, and make sure that you're constantly creating a positive atmosphere. Now, that leads nicely onto the second point here, which I want to talk about, which is going to be clear comms, clear communications. Making sure that you're giving clear comms that are easy to understand and they're not filled with useless info that 49 other people have to listen to.
So 6, 7, 8 should be on B, everybody else should be at C right now. Remember 1, 2, and 3, if you can push out those spawns up to the fort wall and in no man's land, where they're going to be respawning on the point. People on B, get to C side. Make sure we're getting ready for this push. They're all coming in now. Don't worry about the capture progress here, we can bring it back. Just get the kills right now.
I did this right at the start, and I watched them back now and realised how annoying it must have been. And, you know, I'm like, right, guys, we're going to go behind this pillar here, and then when I get my haste put up, we're going to push. Well, everybody might have different cooldowns on that, or I'll come something like, we're going to push up to the left side, there's a couple of guys looking at me. The rest of the people don't need to know that. Keep that in your head, and that is something that you'll take time to master in the common aspect, but it's something in the last few wars I've gotten a lot better at. I still do a few times, you know, say some random useless stuff, but generally on the whole, try and keep it locked in. And that goes to if you're co-comment or you're just giving bits of info, try to keep it as concise and as important as possible. So if you might be having between 7 and 8 people pushing A, just say we've got around 10 players pushing A if you're coming for A. Doesn't need to be exact numbers, and it's always better to overestimate than underestimate, so I would rather hear a comm of 10 if there's about 6 or 7, but if there's only 4 or 5, I don't want to hear 10, because then that completely throws off the composition of the team, right? But if you've got more than 5 but less than 10, throw out 10. So you've got around 2 groups, around 10 players pushing here, and that will just then allow your lead commer to be able to send over players where they need to, and having those clear comms around you as well as yourself is really, really important. Now, generally you don't want to be calling out specific players unless you know their shot caller and you see them. And sometimes it can be useful, particularly if you're trying to clear a site in a particular order. If you take the main Zerg in, or you're coming for the flank team at that particular point, you might say, right, flank team, go into the back line, you need to focus this player, and this player, because you've picked out that those guys are healers. That does work, but bear in mind it's got to be relevant for every member of the flank team or every member of the group, because everybody else, most of the time, is going to be able to hear that comm. So you kind of want to give something that's useful for everybody rather than filling up the time with that. And also, certainly do not complain mid-war. I have seen a few clips going around, from myself previously, from people I've commed with, and, on YouTube in general, the larger community. Sometimes people are uploading videos, and there's guys that are commenting it, and, well, they get killed, and they go off on one saying, oh, I've died there, where's my heals, what's going on, what's this? It's not the time for it. Mid-war, you've got to keep the composure. If you're a lead shot caller, it is really, really important that you keep the composure of the group. Even if you go down and it's a horrendous death, there's loads of lag, it doesn't matter. We all know there's lag. We all know horrendous things can happen. Keep the composition going. Have someone that can help you with calls if you do go down. So either they take over from you, or you've got somebody that can come towards you saying, right, you need to do damage sync now so that you can call that. Even if you're on respawn timers, I've got some notorious clips where I'm completely dead for 25 seconds and I've called a damage spike, they've taken a point, and that's all before I've respawned. So we're going to sync damage on A point, guys, so get around it. Hold abilities for 5, and in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Damage on A, please.
Left.
It can work if you've got someone trusted that is good at timing things, good at knowing what's going on the battlefield, and they're just coming directly into your ear. If it's party chat or something, that does work really, really well as well. So, just make sure that it's clear, people can understand it, and the most important thing above everything else is keep it clear, keep it concise, and keep it consistent. Keep talking to people, let them know what's going on, what they should be doing, reinforce things, reiterate things, clarify, make sure that the plan is simple but effective. If you're transferring, you've got a split team, let's say you've got 1, 2, and 3 groups onto A, and you've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all on B, you'd say that, and you'd get them to comment. It might be that you've got 1, 2, and 3. This is what we do. We do those as our flank groups. So I'd say flank team, you need to be going to A, and the main Zerg, you should be on a B. And that'd be, to clarify, groups 1, 2, and 3, you should be at A, and then groups 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, you should all be on B. Now, that would just make it really, really easy for people to be able to understand where they need to be. Keep reiterating it, doing a really good job. That sort of thing can be included. It kind of depends on your play style, your comm style, but it can be nice as well. Then you want to look at your composition as the third point here. This is really, really important. So having a good composition of players, you need to make sure you've got enough CC, you've got enough people on the flank team, you've got enough range DPS, you've got enough healers, you've got enough tanks, etc, etc. Now, like I just mentioned in the previous tip, what we like to do is have a specific groups or set of groups that do a job. So for example, our groups 1, 2, and 3 are usually our flank team, or our groups 1 and 2, depending kind of if we're attacking or defending. And those guys know that they're flank groups. We try and keep similar players in those roles so that we roughly know who we've got where. And that makes it a lot easier for the lead commer, which is majority of the time myself, to be able to then say, right, I know that groups 1, 2, and 3 are the flank, so I'll either call flank groups or I'll call groups 1, 2, and 3. And they know, and I know, that they can get into the back line. They've got a lot of CC, they've got a lot of quick maneuverability, and they're going to be able to cause havoc to the healers, the mages, the range DPS players, all that good stuff. And that is exactly what I need at that point, so it's going to be really important. Also, all you have to do for your team then to make it really straightforward is get them to check their group. Press L at the start of the war, check which group that you're in, and then you can comm individual groups. So you can say, right, group 10, I know you guys are tanky, let's get group 10 onto C point now while we push, for example. And that can really, really help out, because then you know exactly who you've got where and who can do which role, which as a main commer is something really, really important. Now, I know that composition strictly isn't necessarily a comms point, it's more of a strategy point, but it will win you a war if you know you've got good composition that you can rely on, you know what you're doing, and people listen to the comms. CC is really important in that, tanks in the right place and coming when to push, when to flank, etc., and when they should engage a fight, when the team should move back from a fight. All that good stuff is going to be really important, and the more kind of you keep that in flow and keep people moving, the more they're going to listen to the comms, because they're always going to have a role and a job to play. Now, the fourth thing here, this is really, really important, and this is something that I see tons of people missing out on comms. I'm guilty of it myself. A lot of people we play with are guilty of it, and it's hard. It's really, really difficult, and this is probably the most important thing and the hardest thing as a main commer to do, and that is adaptability. During the war, during the fight, adapting to what the enemies are doing, adapting to how your players are playing that day. Maybe they're a little bit off, maybe they're on top form, maybe you've got a couple of people who you've subbed in that are new, who aren't quite fitting the role, so you need to adjust the plan slightly. Whatever the case may be, you need to be able to do that during mid-fight as the lead commer, and this is something which really, it just takes a lot of practice. It does take a long time to become a master of, and by no means am I there yet, but I am working on it hard. You know, what you need to kind of get is, you see a lot of people miss out on things. You see people sticking to one plan. You see people making sure if they're getting flanked, they just carry on hitting a point instead of returning fire on the flank team, killing those, and then pushing, etc., etc. And it's just about seeing how the enemy plays, seeing how your team are playing, and seeing where you can pick up the pieces to filter into either the plan you're doing or rearrange your plan if you need to as well. It's things like if they have a static backline, you weren't necessarily going to have a flank team on that point, but you might know that 6 and 7 have a lot of bruisers in. They've got a lot of people with CC, so you might say, Team 6 and 7, push past the point, go into that backline that are stood there free casting as mages and healers, and just disrupt them, CC them, kill them off, and then come back to the point, and that's going to be really, really useful. It might be that the enemy attacking team places a load of siege down on A point, so you need teams that are not your flank team, because you've sent those to counter push the split push they're doing at C. So it might be that you have to say, right, let's get group 6, push that siege. Your primary focus is getting that siege down. Doesn't matter if you die, just go and get it down, because that's going to put the pressure off the point. And that can be something, again, you adapt to during the war. So it's, of course, going back to point 1, making sure you have a clear and concise plan with backups and sticking to those where you can, but also having the ability and the fluidity to change those plans as and when needed is going to be really, really good, and something that really puts you at an advantage and standing out from the crowd versus every other team that you play, because a lot of teams will say, right, we'll push B first, then C, and they'll keep hitting B every time. Hit B, hit B, hit B, even if they keep getting pushed back and back and back. Instead, what you need to do, even if it's mid-push and you think, we're pushing C here, but it's not really working out, right, everybody, let's rotate quickly towards A, because by the time the enemy team reacts to that, they might have to rotate as well. You can hold them off in no man's land, you can do other things, you can get half your team capping whilst the other half are killing, you can get some people split pushing, and all sorts of stuff which have opened up from that adapted play from the plan, which initially was just everybody push C and try and take that. Now that might not work every time, it's just an example, but it's something that I've personally had experience with that's worked, and it's worked well. So it certainly is not worth pushing continually on the same plan. If it isn't working, please switch it up. Now, the fifth point here is going to be having a solid co-commer, or somebody that can just give you little bits of information, kind of remind you of what you're common as well. I have a couple of guys that do this, and it's really, really useful. Mainly, I've got Whaley in my ear who tells me, right, we need to get the team sinking damage here, we need to get these people rotating here, we need to get teams 3 to rotate here, etc.
We're getting C, just send everyone to B now.
Okay.
On the middle of the point, guys.
Right, let's turn around. We want 6, 7, 8 all onto B, please, now.
And he kind of knows what the groups are doing, helps me come up with the plans, etc., and then tells me kind of if I'm missing something, or if I forget to say something, or if there's a good opportunity for people to be able to buy things from the shop. That's where he comes in there, and having those sort of people, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you need on the team, is going to be really, really good, so long as they keep their information brief, concise, and useful only, and that's going to be super, super useful. Also, if you can have someone that can take over full comms if you do die or you disconnect, as I've done unfortunately a couple of times from the war, and I've had to reconnect my Discord and stuff. Literally the other day, I had to re-authenticate my Discord mid-war, which was a pain. So having someone that can pick up those lead comms is really important as well. So even if it's just for 5 minutes, that would be really, really good. Now, moving on to point 6, this is probably the second most important point out of everything here, and that's going to be keeping it positive. Never call people out during the war. Never tell people they're doing stuff bad. Just, you know, pick people up and say, okay, guys, guys, we're too overextended here. Let's get everybody back to the point. And you can speak to people individually afterwards if you need to. If people are really, really doing it, there can be situations where you can call people out and just say, you just need to bring your position back a little bit, but make sure you're keeping it with a positive spin. Make sure that, you know, if anybody argues with the comms mid-war, you just continue to comm that and speak to them afterwards, and make sure you don't put them in the next war, because you need people, even if they don't agree with the comms, to follow on, because even a bad comm can become a great comm if the team plays together. And that goes for you as well. No arguing if people don't listen. You just carry on. And, you know, as I say, if you've got the chance to say to them, you should be over there now, mate, I've asked you to go here, please can you rotate as soon as possible, that's fine. But not if there's lots of stuff going on. You talk to people afterwards, you talk to people before the next war, etc., and try to keep a really positive spin on things as well. If you're losing a point or your push doesn't go successfully, make sure you keep it positive. Say it doesn't matter, we've got 2 points now, it's easier to rotate, it's easier to defend, we can easily more split between 2 than 3, etc. And just keep the positive mentality going, because the morale of your team is going to play a huge factor. And as a lead commer, that is something really, really important. I've seen lots of clips all over YouTube of some people being overly positive as well, so that's something you do want to watch. You don't want to tell your team they're doing a fantastic job if they've just died needlessly by pushing into the enemy war camp. You should be picking that up and saying, right guys, I understand that you want to get your kills, but you need to really pull back. We need to let the enemies funnel into us here so that we can get these kills rather than pushing into them. And that's still putting a positive spin on it, but it's reinforcing the plan, reinforcing the rules that you need for your war, and still keeping the environment friendly, environment where people can chat to each other and kind of give those comms, but they're not kind of just randomly charging off and doing their own thing without any consequence. And that's where the fine line is. Again, this is a very difficult thing to kind of get on top of, but again, it's really, really important, especially for that lead comm person to have ability of. And then finally, we all know about the lags and bugs with that, so making sure that you're keeping on top of those, you're not pointing them out. We all know that it's lagging. We all know that there's BS in the game where you can get one hit by a musket to the head. It's fine. We don't need that comm to 49 other people. So getting on top of that, again, can be really hard, especially if you're someone like me where you're not used to maybe playing with 50 people, a group of 5 or something. And the old thing where you say, oh, I just died to this and it's rubbish and blah, 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 can be okay. You know, other games, Call of Duty, Halo, FPS type games, even Tarkov, things like that. But in a big team battle like this, you can't be on the comms telling people, oh, it's lagging, man. Everybody knows it's lagging. Everybody's going to be feeling the same as you. Try and keep the positive spirit going. Try and keep the positive environment, so people are more likely to try and keep the fight going. Now finally here for point 7, explain the plan well at the beginning of the game. Give an overall rundown of the strategy. So we're aiming to push B first, then A, then C. If we don't get that, we'll adapt it as we go. Once we get into the fort, we're going to get rid of all of the gates before we push in to make sure that we've got a lot of angles. We're then going to get the flank team pushing up the back side. We're going to get the groups 6, 7, and 8 pushing up onto the battlements. We're going to get groups 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 straight onto the main point. As an example, you know, giving them a rough idea of what's going on, and then obviously we hope to capture that point. We're going to do a jump down onto it, whatever, and then reiterate before you go into the battle. So off the start, guys, I want everybody pushing up to the castle walls from A side. Every single player except from group 9, you guys are going to start at C side. Something along those lines. We'll just reiterate to everybody, get it in the mindset, what the fresh plan is, what they need to be doing straight away, and always keep that in mind. Keep it as simple as you can. You can know the ins and outs, but everybody else just needs to know what their next move is so that they can react to that and fight the players, because once you've got a lot going on in your head, it starts to become a lot more confusing. So keeping it clear, concise, consistent, positive where you can, a good composition, and making sure that you've got the adaptability is a quick roundup of basically everything you will need to be a lead commer in New World. So hopefully this helps you guys out. Hopefully you've learned something new, or you've thought of something from watching this video that you hadn't thought of before. If you've got any other tips that I've missed out, then please do drop them in the comments below. I'd love to share them around to hear what your guys' thoughts are on this, because I think lead comment is probably one of the hardest roles in the war in New World. So if you have got any tips, please do share them. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please do be sure to leave a like on today's video down below, as it really, really does help support me and my content here on YouTube. Other than that, if you are new to the channel, please do make sure you drop a subscribe down below as well. We are pushing for 13,000 subscribers, so if you could help me out, that would be amazing. I do upload every single day as well, so make sure that you don't forget to put the notification bells on so that you don't miss out on any of those uploads. And other than that, guys, as always, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you again tomorrow with another video. Take care, guys, and peace.